There comes a moment when heaven itself bends close to whisper, "You've been fooled," and not with anger, but with sorrow, for the lie you believed was never meant to hold such power over a soul so divine. You thought you were small. You thought your pain was proof that heaven forgot your name. You thought the silence meant absence, and the storm meant punishment. And yet, in that very silence, God was speaking louder than the thunder you feared. You've been fooled into believing that what you see is all there is. The world told you that success is measured by applause, that joy depends on circumstance, that love must be earned. But God never bartered with your worth. Before the mountains were shaped or the stars were hung in their patient courses, your value was sealed in His breath. The lie of this age that you must become something before you are loved is the oldest trick of all. The truth, the eternal truth, is that you are loved, therefore you become. You've been fooled by the glittering counterfeits of peace. They promise rest but leave you restless, offer pleasure but empty your soul. They make you chase shadows' approval, fame, the next small comfort, until you no longer remember the taste of stillness. And yet, somewhere deep, something wholly still aches to awaken. God's whisper breaks through the noise, saying, "You have been fooled but not forsaken." The enemy of your soul never needed to steal your strength. He only needed to convince you you had none. But heaven knows who you are. You are the child who can speak light into darkness because light himself dwells in you. You are the being for whom eternity was rewritten. So stand up. Shake the dust of deception from your mind. Remember whose image you bear. The fooling ends when the remembering begins, when you stop seeing yourself through the lens of failure and start seeing yourself through the gaze of love. God does not say, "You've been fooled," to shame you, but to awaken you. The truth is not lost. It was only hidden under the noise of fear. And once you see again, truly see, no lie can hold you. Heaven is calling you back to reality, not the dim one men built with mirrors, but the radiant one God built with light. And when you return to it, you will not just know you were fooled. You will know you have been found. The greatest deception is believing you are less than what God created you to be. The greatest deception is believing you are less than what God created you to be. This lie creeps in quietly, disguised as humility, as realism, as the voice of your own disappointment. It tells you that you are ordinary, that your prayers don't rise above the ceiling, that your existence is small against the vast machinery of the world. And yet, this is the oldest and cruelest trick ever played to make a divine creation forget its origin. For the moment you believe you are less, you stop reaching for the more that heaven placed within you. You were not made from random dust or born by chance. You carry in your breath the echo of divine intention, the spark that once said, "Let there be light." Every heartbeat is a testimony that God has not finished His sentence in you. But when the lie takes root, when you begin to measure yourself by failure, by comparison, by human standards of worth, your vision narrows until you cannot see the kingdom alive within you. You start chasing approval that cannot satisfy and fearing rejection that cannot define you. The tragedy is not that you are weak, but that you have forgotten how strong you already are. The truth is that heaven placed treasures in fragile vessels so that the glory would never be mistaken as human made. You were designed to reflect, not manufacture, divine beauty. And even when life breaks you, when disappointment cracks the walls of your faith, light still leaks through the wounds. The enemy's greatest victory is not in your suffering, but in convincing you that suffering means God has left. But the truth is the opposite. He is closest when the world feels most cruel, whispering through the ruins, "You are still mine." When you finally see through the lie, you will discover that being less was never an option. You can't breathe the breath of God. You can't carry the image you were shaped in. No voice of doubt, no shadow of failure, no scar from the past can undo what heaven declared eternal. You were created in glory, called in purpose, and crowned in love. The greatest deception was believing you were small, but the greatest awakening is realizing you never were. The world blinds you with illusions, but heaven awakens you with truth. The world blinds you with illusions, but heaven awakens you with truth. Every day, your senses are surrounded by noise, the shimmer of success, the chase for recognition, the endless scroll of comparisons. These illusions are gentle at first, whispering promises of happiness just one step away. If only you achieve more, look better, own more, become more. Yet, as you run toward them, they fade like mirages in the desert, leaving only thirst. This is how the world deceives, not with violence, but with distraction. It fills your hands with glitter until you forget the gold within your soul. Truth, however, is not loud. It does not compete with the noise of the crowd. It waits patient, eternal like morning light creeping through a half-closed curtain. Heaven's truth does not flatter you. It frees you. It does not promise comfort but clarity. It tells you that joy is not a product to be purchased, but a presence to be remembered. It reminds you that you are not chasing meaning, you were born with it. The world says, prove your worth, but heaven whispers, your worth was settled before you began. These illusions of the world are powerful because they appeal to our deepest hunger, the desire to be seen, loved, and significant. But the tragedy is that they offer reflections, not reality. Like standing before a hall of mirrors, you see versions of yourself that twist and bend until you no longer recognize the face that God formed in love. Heaven's truth, by contrast, holds up a mirror unbroken. It shows you as you truly are flawed, yes, but infinitely beloved, fallen, yet redeemable beyond measure. The awakening comes when you dare to open your eyes to that truth. When you stop letting the world tell you what matters and start listening for the still voice that has always been speaking inside you. It is the voice that says, you were never meant to blend with illusions. You were meant to bring light to them. The moment you turn from the glittering shadows and face the eternal light, the blindness fades. You remember who you are, whose you are, and what you were sent here to do. Then the illusions lose their spell, and truth, gentle, unshakable truth, becomes your sight. When you remember who you are in God, every lie loses its power. When you remember who you are in God, every lie loses its power. The lies that once ruled your thoughts begin to crumble the moment you see yourself through heaven's eyes. You are never the mistake your failures suggested, nor the sum of what others thought of you. The world may have named you by your scars, but God named you by your purpose. To remember who you are in Him is not mere reflection, it is resurrection. It is the moment your soul awakens and says, I know where I come from. For too long, we wear the masks the world hands us: titles, reputations, fears disguised as wisdom. We forget that identity was never meant to be borrowed from circumstance. Your identity is older than your story. It was written before time began. When you return to that truth, lies lose their authority. The voice that told you you're not enough, the fear that said you'll never change, the doubt that said your prayer was too late, all of it fades before the reality of divine remembrance. The light of truth doesn't argue with darkness. It simply shines, and darkness must leave. To remember who you are in God is to stand on solid ground when the world shakes. It means knowing that your worth is anchored in something unmovable, untouched by failure or success. You begin to live not for approval, but from assurance. You stop striving to be loved because you realize you already are fiercely, endlessly, and without condition. Every lie that once bound you depended on your forgetfulness. The moment you remember, its chains dissolve. This remembrance is not a thought, it is a returning. It's the soul finding its way back home after wandering through 1,000 false reflections. It's hearing the Father's quiet voice in the chaos saying, "You are still mine." And when you let that truth settle deep within you, fear has no language left, shame has no place left to sit, and lies have no voice left to speak. When you remember who you are in God, you don't become someone new, you simply become who you were always meant to be. The illusion ends, and the truth begins to breathe again through you.